Three, two, one, go.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Triad of the Forest podcast, a podcast from three Puerto Rican friends coming together to do deep dives into Star Wars and other nerd-related media. This is to episode 25, and
Yeah, five.
that is correct, right?
It's
Yes.
been
And
oh my god,
it's
25
been
episodes of
25
season two.
of
Jesus.
season 2. And we will be talking today about the first 3 episodes of What If.
What if?
But before we get into that, we just wanted to let you know that clearly our third member of the Triad, Mo, is not with us today. They were not available, but do not worry, they will be back.
They will be
But
back. Today we are a dyad, not a triad, but a triad in spirit, regardless.
Agreed. So, what if?
What if, man? That was an interesting show. Especially when they announced it. I was very intrigued by it. And it's been interesting too in terms of like marketing. Like I don't feel that Marvel really was kind of like giving it the same importance as Falcon and Winter Soldier, Loki, and WandaVision. So it's kind of a show that kind of I in a way forgot about was coming out until when it came out, and all of a sudden I saw on Twitter, oh, the show came out. I'm like, oh, okay, I gotta watch it. So not to diminish its quality, right? And we'll talk about the quality once we start talking about the content. But I'm not like it's interesting to see like a Marvel show that hasn't been, given like a lot of importance considering like how Marvel likes to market itself. I don't know if you've gotten the same vibe of like how the show has been.
Yeah, I wasn't even sure, when it was coming out. I remember it was announced and I was like, I don't know if I care that much.
Right.
And then they just kind of put it in the back burner. I mean, you didn't really see any advertising for it. And they pushed, the other shows a lot. And I think, especially, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I thought, originally they said it wasn't going to be canon, but then because of Loki and the fact that, Sylvie and Loki broke the sacred timeline and released the multiverse, that now it is going to be canon. So I feel like when that happened, they could have pushed it more, At that point, it's like, surprise, this all matters. This is all real. Yeah. This is all within the space. So
no, you're right. They had said that it wasn't part of the MCU canon. But I think that was purposeful, right? Because if they had said that it was, then it would have kind of spoiled the whole multiverse angle of Loki.
Well, we already knew the multiverse of madness was a thing, though.
Yeah, but it wasn't as explicit, right? As as what happened all of a sudden. Loki was just like, oh shit, there's variants, all these things. Like these things are actually happening. We only thought about it because of the title of a movie, and not like, okay, what are the implications? Because they had teased it in Spider-Man Far From Home with like, Mysterio is from the multiverse, but it was that red herring. He's actually just a guy faking everything. So we didn't know what the extent of multiverse really meant in the title of Doctor Strange, even though, right, it's hindsight obvious, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't like a full confirmed thing with all the implications that it comes with until Loki. And I think that's why they might have held off in saying that, oh, it's canon, because then it would have been like, oh, well, there's really no point to this super ending of Loki of unleashing the multiverse if we already knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, true.
But I still have not doubts, but the show, because of how it's structured, to me at least, it makes me wonder like how exactly it will tie in and cross over into like the live action stuff, because it's like, since it's 20-minute episodes and they all feel like they're retellings of movies, but in 20-minute episodes, like I feel like they're very self-contained, and I don't know if there's gonna be any chance for, I mean, there is chance, but I don't know how exactly it's gonna plug in right to the other movies and the other live action stuff.
I kind of think it's probably just gonna end up being its own thing, actually, because they do feel very self-contained,
I thought it was going to be like Visions in that sense. It's just like, oh, this is a thing of us telling these stories, but now that's actually part of the multiverse. It's like, well, so is it really self-contained in that sense anymore? Or are we going to see things pop in and be like, oh, all of a sudden, like, I don't know, I mean, everything's game, right? I was going to give an example, but all examples are valid because everything can happen in the multiverse. So it's like, oh, okay, well, all bets are off.
Yeah. And it would make sense, you know, for a character like maybe the Watcher to show up somewhere. So,
well, that's a good point because you don't cast, what's his face? Oh my God, I forgot his name. Oh my God, he's going to be Alfred in the new Batman.
Jeffrey Wright.
Jeffrey, thank you. I was going to say Jeremy Irons, and I'm like,
no.
Right. But there was a J in there. There's a J in there. You don't cast Jeffrey Wright to be the Watcher and like not have him not participate in a bigger scope. So we'll see. But anyway, what do you think of the show? We're 3 episodes in. I have no idea how many episodes it's gonna be, but
I think it's 18 episodes.
18.
18.
I thought it was gonna be 6 or 9 or something.
Yeah, it's 18 episodes.
Holy shit.
So like I said, when I first heard announced, I wasn't really, I don't know, I didn't really care. It's not the kind of animation that I usually go for. It's kind of like that blocky, reminds you kind of like Archer kind of animation that is not necessarily my cup of tea. And then that first episode came out, and you know, that's what if Captain Carter were the first Avenger? And it is basically a retelling of the first, you know, Captain America film, but this time we get Peggy Carter as Captain America, or you know, Captain Carter, which I thought was really awesome, just because Peggy Carter was already a badass, like even without the superpowers, and then combining her mind with the powers is like something else. And it's a really good nod to, you know, female soldiers, and that female soldiers matter as well, because you know, the one guy who keeps ignoring her kind of ends up, you know, like an asshole basically. Right. And what I thought was actually really special about it was the relationship between her and Steve. Right. Because, you know, from our universe, the one that we've grown up with, Steve always respected her and, you know, loved her his entire life. And he does eventually get that dance with her at the end of Endgame. But in this version, Steve never gets his powers. He ends up being, you know, the weak, scrawny kid. He does, you know, become the first Iron Man, but still. I thought it was really cool that he didn't feel diminished as a man because Peggy is the one with all the powers and the strong, powerful woman, and he is all there for support and being her sidekick. And it's just kind of beautiful that they fall in love regardless of who's the one with like the power dynamic. So
no, and to that point, I think it was actually interesting too. I really appreciate it because she still loves him as the scrawny kid, because obviously in the first Avenger, we don't get to see if she loved him like if she loved him for who he, I mean, she always loved and appreciated him, but we don't know if she like actually like was swooning and became like, oh, I want to be in a relationship with this person, like after he got beefed up and became, you know, as Captain America proper. So it's kind of nice to see in the show that her feelings were actually genuine for him, despite, you know, how he eventually ended up looking. And she was like, oh yeah, I'm the strong, tall woman, and you're the scrawny little kid body, right? But I still love you as a person. So I thought that was a really cool dynamic in that sense. And so I really actually enjoyed that episode. The only issue that like I had with it in a way, and it's not really like a big deal, it's just that, like you said at first, it's a retelling of the first Captain America. So there are deviations there, and there are things that occur a little differently, but the plot beats are basically the same. So that's kind of for me why, like, I mean, I enjoyed it. I had fun. I'll keep watching the series, but like and we'll see that with episode 3 also. But it didn't do anything that different to me to be like, oh, okay, we're not really to justify to me like, okay, that's why we're retelling these stories. I did like the angle, obviously, like you were mentioning, Peggy being Captain America, Captain Carter, because it does give that perspective of even a woman in power in that time isn't giving the respect she deserves just because of her sex. So that's obviously something that's valid to look at, and something that in 20 minutes you can't really delve that deep into it and go harder into it. But for what it was, I think they did a good job. But Yeah, I mean, it was fine. I think it's like a solid 7.5 or 8 on the 1 to 10 scale of rating episodes. I wouldn't go higher just because what we said, right? It's kind of derivative from the first Captain America. It doesn't go kind of beyond it. I mean, there's the squid tentacle thing, monster, right at the end when she comes into the future. But I don't know.
Yeah.
It's we'll see. What I now that you mentioned though that it's 18 episodes, which I did not know. I wonder then if they're going to connect, like if there's going to be like a second part of this episode, or this episode is going to have repercussions in another episode somehow. Like the different phases of the film MCUs, is there going to be like micro phases within this season, and we get to see like her participation after the ends of this first episode, like in the Avengers episode of What If. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? I guess we'll just have to find out and see. I did appreciate that they were able to save Bucky this time, and save him a lot of trauma. So that was nice. But anyway, we're gonna skip episode 2 and leave it for the end because I think unanimously it's our favorite one, and we want to dedicate a little bit more time to it. So let's go straight into the third one. What if the world lost its mightiest heroes?
That was a lot of fun. I'm gonna be upfront. I really enjoyed the whodunit aspect of it, like the murder mystery thing. It was like an Agatha Christie type episode, but obviously Avengers styled. And it was fun just to. It's funny because it's what we were criticizing about the first episode. I think it was kind of the strength of this one. It was kind of like the retelling of all the Phase 1 films. But it was fun in that sense because it wasn't just the one and Phase 1 MCU film. It was all of them, and especially the Incredible Hulk. I really appreciate it. Like the love, right, to kind of go back and revisit a movie that Marvel has historically neglected. I don't know if it's because of the whole Edward Norton debacle or if because it wasn't well received, even though this is a hot take. I do think the Incredible Hulk is underrated. I think people give it too much shit, and I think it's actually better than a lot of people give it credit for. That's it.
I actually agree with you, and it is still way better than the Eric Bana one. So.
Oh yeah, well
that was a disaster. So yeah, I thought it was really cool how they just added like Mark Ruffalo into that film, and it's like seamless. It's like, we don't care, we're gonna use this movie, but Mark Ruffalo is the Hulk. And then you get to see Betty Ross again, which was like kind of ignored that character ever existed, and she's like super important in the Hulk universe. So yeah, it was really cool to like revisit all of that and see how all the original Avengers get murdered, except for Captain America and Captain Marvel, obviously. But it just had a lot of stuff going on because you do have like the interplay of like all of those movies plus the murder mystery, and then you bring in Loki and it's like the variant of Loki who finally gets to conquer Earth, so it's like this
and conquers Earth through like altruistic means, right? It's like, oh well, I actually saved the day and like helped to discover like who murdered all the Avengers, and it's like now it's a different way of doing it than you would have otherwise have attempted.
Well, yeah,
which I guess leads me to the question, right?
Yeah.
And that leads me to the question now that this whole 18 episode things that's still blowing my mind. It's like, so is there gonna be like a second part to this where like they try to the other Avengers that are left, like Captain Marvel and stuff, try to defeat Loki like after the events of this episode? Like now I'm just thinking of like, okay, so if the episodes are as self-contained as I thought they were.
Now it's all the possibilities now. So
too many.
We have no idea what's gonna happen. So obviously, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched the episode, turn it off. As you're watching it, it's like really obvious who the bad guy is, but I didn't pick up on it at all.
Oh yeah. But I think that's a good murder mystery, right? It's like, well, you look at it in hindsight, it's like, oh my god, it makes so much sense.
That was so obvious. It's right in your face, but you don't really notice it because Ant-Man has never been this character that you think is going to be super powerful, even though, the younger version of Ant-Man, without him, we wouldn't have been able to defeat Thanos. And is a very important character. And then obviously the Michael Douglas version of Ant-Man had been like really powerful back in his day, but you kind of forget that. And then to see him go mad like this, how incredibly powerful. He killed all the Avengers before they could even like get started.
Without breaking a sweat.
Yeah.
And I did appreciate though that he wasn't using the I was gonna say Spider-Man, the Ant-Man.
Yeah.
It's bugs. Come on, give me a break. The Ant-Man suit that he was using, the leather jacket. Jesus, what's wrong with me today? The jello jacket suit instead. I was like, oh, that's a good way to like bring in the other Ant-Man movie without like actually bringing in that movie. So it was fun. And I think it was actually Michael Douglas voicing the character. So kudos to Marvel for having, for the most part, brought in most of the actors to reprise their voice, the roles, right, in voice format.
I mean, you did have Samuel L. Jackson and Jeremy Renner, and in the original, I think Peggy Carter was the original voice. I mean, it's been a lot of the original voices, and I think it's been really, really cool, especially because sometimes they don't really sound like themselves, because voice acting is completely different from acting. So sometimes like, is it really them?
That's why I was confused with Michael Douglas, because I was like, it sounds like someone talking like Michael Douglas, but it doesn't sound like Michael Douglas. And then I read that it was, and I was like, oh, that's okay. That's weird.
Yep. But it was still a lot of fun. And then the fight at the end, I remember when Samuel L. Jackson like just smacks him. I'm like, how? What? And it's like, oh, right, I was like, it's Loki. You're like, what's happening? Oh, right, it's probably Loki.
It's like, how does Nick Fury have such like awesome reflexes here?
Kicking the shit out of the guy that just killed a whole bunch of Avengers. So, but yeah, it was interesting to see how somebody that is supposed to be a good guy, once they're driven to the other side, how dangerous it can really be. And these people with powers, and see the other side of the coin. So I think it just had a lot of stuff going on for it being 20-something minute video. So but it was still pretty cool, and I'm kind of glad Loki got to conquer Earth. So
yeah, it feels like Marvel is out for that Loki gratification after having killed him on Endgame. It's just like, okay, well, we killed him on Endgame, we broke everyone's heart, but now we're bringing him back, and he gets to do everything that he didn't get to do, and like it's gratifying for some people. I mean, for me, it's a little overkill because I was never too much of a fan of Loki, as we've mentioned in the past. And so at this moment, it's like, oh my God, I get it. You're burdened with glorious purpose. Okay. So like I'm a little overloaded with the whole Loki thing, but yeah, sure, yeah, it's let's do it. Let's go with it. It's fine.
It's fine.
They're doing it right. So at least
Okay, and then that leads us into episode 2, which so far, hands down, the best I think is what if T'Challa became Star-Lord. So what did you think?
It's the best one so far, and I think this episode, I mean, and along with episode 3 to an extent, but this episode 2 is for like above and beyond, kind of shows the potential that this show has for these what if scenarios, and like the power that characters can have in changing the story if they had been different places at different times. So this was the best because it's not a Guardians of the Galaxy retelling. It's set right in that Guardians timeline, but it kind of does its own thing completely with with T'Challa influencing the story in a completely different way, which kind of starts asking that question, right, of nature versus nurture type of thing, because as the original Star-Lord was there and also kidnapped as a child, but he was raised up in the same shitty environment, but he decided to kind of not be an outstanding person. and T'Challa in the same environment was able to thrive and help and do different things and actually help people and be known throughout the galaxy, right, as Star-Lord, supposed to like ignore it because like you're not really doing that much good for the galaxy. So as a whole, I mean, the story was very engaging. It was super dynamic. We had Chadwick Boseman who like this
I
week
know.
was his 1 year anniversary since his passing. So
Oh.
rest in power. So having him was really special. I think he did like a marvelous job at the voice acting, and that story was just great, especially like his dynamic also with like Nebula.
Yeah.
Nebula was fantastic, exactly, to see like a positive version of her that was able to not get over, but like have been raised in a different environment so that she could also thrive to be like an agent of good instead of an agent of chaos, like she had been in the first Guardians movie. Was really special. So like I thought this episode was a home run. This was a 10 out of 10. And it kind of, again, like I said, it kind of shows the potential of the what if.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought this episode was amazing. It was not something I knew I needed, but I did. I needed this in my life. It was fantastic.
Right.
I was commenting before that I'm not a huge fan of like this style of animation, but in this episode done in space the way that it was, there was something really magical about it. They kept that colorful, beautiful vibe that Guardians has, but then obviously from the lens of, Black Panther is now Star-Lord, and he was able to not just defeat Thanos with a conversation, but get Thanos to join the team. I mean, just because of his charm and just desire to do good and be an agent of good, and vindicates the Ravagers, and the relationship with Yondu is fantastic as well. I mean, even when he finds out that Yondu lied to him about the destruction of Wakanda, he's like forgiving. It's his family, it's where he belongs, and he's the one that chose the path because he wanted to be an explorer.
Right.
So everything about it was great. The Collector was super creepy and did not sound like Benicio del Toro at all. I remember at the beginning that they said Benicio del Toro, and when he started speaking, I was like, that.
Yeah, I was like, yeah. I was like, this is sus. I don't believe this. Yeah.
Like, and the accent's off. Like, I don't know. It's very strange.
Yeah, maybe he did it on an off day. He was like, fuck, I have to record my lines. Here you go. And then he was off.
So yeah, everybody's reaction whenever they see Star-Lord this time around. I love that Cha-Cha. And then Korath was my favorite, who's like a super fanboy. And in the original one, it's like, who the hell is Star-Lord? And this one's like, please take me with you. I will be your friend.
That's what I liked about it. Because I mean, that actor, I always forget his name. Jim, whatever. I'm not going to try to pronounce his name because I'm going to butcher it. So I apologize. But that actor, I really like him. And he's in a lot of movies. And when I saw he was in Guardians, I was like, oh man, this is great. I love this actor. And then he's just like in one scene. And like, come on.
Yeah.
Give this guy his due. And like, I'm really glad that this episode came in. It's like, okay, we're going to make you part of the Ravagers now, and you're gonna be one of the main characters of the episode. So that made me happy that he was in it. Obviously he was the comic relief, but it worked, I think, as a balance to like everything else that was happening.
I thought it was really good, actually, and I really do love the whole Thanos aspect of it, because Thanos is a character that, even though what he did was like abhorrent, he kind of had a point. But then this time with the conversations with T'Challa, we realized that, there's always two ways to do something, or there's more than one way to do it. It's T'Challa convinced him that you can reallocate resources in a different way and save the universe in a different way than, through killing half of the universe. So.
But it was hilarious how self-aware that scene was when they're talking about it. And then like Thanos is like, well, had a point.
Yeah. It was still efficient, I might add. Like, he keeps continuing to do it because they keep pointing out the fact that, dude, that sounds like genocide. No, it's effective. So, I mean, I think it was kind of hilarious and really well done. So T'Challa saved the universe, and it's fantastic. So I thought it was a great homage to both Chadwick Boseman and the character of T'Challa. I cried when the dedication came out at the end. It was like a real good way to cap off, and say goodbye to this character. So I thought it was really exceptional work that they did there, and you can tell all the love that there is for this character and for the person of Chadwick Boseman. So I thought it was great. Really, it blew my mind, the episode. Really, I couldn't believe it. I was like, what did I just watch? Oh my god.
Yeah. especially with the ending. The ending, I kind of didn't see it coming. I mean, I guess it should have seen it. But the ending when like they come back to Wakanda, he has the reunion with his father, and like how like the emotions like behind that scene, and like seeing the friendship and camaraderie between everybody. It was really special. So like I really appreciated the episode because it transcended right storytelling, and it just became like a little magical realm of its own. So like I hope we get to see a lot more of that throughout the season. Not to say right that episodes 1 and 3 were bad. I guess they all have been good, but episode 2 has been like special. It was kind of and it's a coincidence, right, that it happened to be the one that had Chadwick on it, because they obviously did it with him, so they had no way of being like, oh well, we have to make it extra special because he's passed away, so we have to do it to honor him. There's no way to do that, right, because he was still alive when they wrote it. So like the fact that it just ended up being that way, it's just it's special unto its own self. It's like layers of magic. Layers upon layers of magic. And then I don't know, I just hope we get to see more heartfelt stories like that. I don't know how much more Black Panther will see, because I think Marvel's obviously with Black Panther 2, they're not going to include him in any capacity like CGI or recasting or anything. So I think that's a good move, right, to honor him in that sense of not carrying on the character because the character is his. But I don't know if that's going to be the case in animation. So I don't know if there's going to be any stories to tell, right, with T'Challa anymore, at least in the MCU. So if this is it, it was an awesome way to cap it. So we'll see what the future holds, because it's 18 episodes. It's not 8.
Well, apparently, because I kept looking into it because it did seem like a lot. Apparently, the season has 9 episodes, but they already okayed season 2.
There we go.
Its own 9 episodes, but they don't have a release date or anything for that. So now it makes more sense.
So you were right but wrong at the same time. Okay. That makes sense. Okay, 9 seems reasonable, because Bad Batch was 16, I think it was.
I think so. I think Bad Batch 16.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, I think 9. Yeah, I think seasons just as a whole in every medium, right, live action animation, should kind of stick to like, I don't know, 10 episodes. I think it's a good round number. 10, 12 episodes. Sometimes when it goes beyond that, it just drags a lot. So like I like keeping it concise, so you can get all your story beats in there without you really having to drag your feet on any plot point or anything. But so we're a third of the way in.
So I agree with you though that they, even though episode 1 and episode 3 weren't bad episodes, but I would like for them to step away of just like straight up retellings and do more of what they did in episode 2, which is like adding this curveball that really does change the story, and it doesn't stick to all the same beats. So I'm looking forward to it. It's been way more fun than I was expecting it to be. So I will continue to watch it. And I think that's it for What If. We don't really have that much to deep dive into it, but I mean, obviously there's the possibility of what if in Star Wars. So
yeah, I think the main question about that is, should Star Wars have a what if? And if it does, then what are those possibilities? And I think the first question is like, the first answer to the first question is a maybe, because Visions is kind of a what if, right? It's like, it's not technically a what if in the sense of like, what if different stories happen differently, but it's a what if about like, oh, completely different things that are not tied to the saga are happening in that world. If that made sense, I don't know if that makes sense. So I think there's definitely like a possibility for it. I don't think it would be canon, and I hate this whole discussion about what is canon or not, because it distracts, right, from good storytelling. But It's possible. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing some one-off shot stories that are detached, right? Just like visions are of alternate possibilities. I remember there were like some comic books back in the day, and I could be wrong about this, when with the Dark Horse comics that were something like that, exploring some of those stories, like if Luke had missed, or maybe they were books, whatever. You nerds know what I'm talking about, and if you don't, you can Wikipedia about Luke missing the shot that destroyed the Death Star, and like big moments like that of like if they had happened differently. So there is a precedent for it in Star Wars. So I wouldn't be 100% opposed to that happening. My concerns are more with, fandom and being like, the discourse
you can't
behind
change this, blah blah blah. Yeah,
exactly. What do you think?
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I mean, just I would like it to be like kind of separate from the original storyline and not kind of mess with what's already been done there. I don't necessarily agree with everything that happened in the sequel trilogy, but if you start trying to change it around, it opens up this possibility to change everything else around. So I think it would be fun just, if it's done for fun, if that's the idea, to show you like a different version of it, but don't mess with what's already there. Because there are things that I would think would be really cool to watch. Like if Rey actually went dark side, I would love to see that. If Ben Solo survived, something like that, I would love to see that. And maybe if like Ben is a good guy and Rey is the bad guy, like something like that would be really cool to see. So I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely fun to see the alternate circumstances, right? But again, to kind of tie it back to what we were talking about with Marvel, it has to do something meaningful with the story they're trying to tell, instead of just like doing like the retelling of just like inverted roles or something. Because as much as I did enjoy that pick, that the Captain Carter episode, it was just this inverted role story. And it had things to say, but in terms of like those narrative structure, it was basically a retelling. So for that Ben and Rey type of swap, I would be interested in seeing that, but I wanted to kind of have a little more gravitas than just be okay. Well, it's just the same thing,
by reverse,
but separate. So it'd be definitely cool to watch. Or what if Luke had turned to the dark side and Return of the Jedi or something like that? Those things would be interesting. I don't think though that we should, because some people always like to rely on the world between worlds to be like, oh well, this is how we get away from canon. This is how we circumvent the sequel trilogy. And it's like, oh yeah, it's that's not what I mean. But this is like a tangent, right? That's we've been known to do. Some of these fans, I'm sorry, but you used the world between worlds wrong. Because if you saw Rebels and you saw that episode and you used the world between worlds in that way, then you are getting the wrong message from the world between worlds, because that is not what Filoni intended when he brought it. I mean, they literally say that you should not be using this to change what happened, because that's not the intent that the Force has for this space. So they kind of use it mechanically in that way to satisfy your headcanon fan storylines. It's just rude, because that's not what the world between worlds is for. So if there is a Star Wars,
rude.
If there is a Star Wars what if, it should just be like Visions, and it should just be its own thing and live in a self-contained way. And again, it should be used to explore meaningful stories that kind of contribute to that, that Star Wars narrative, not just wish fulfillment.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. So, but it would be a good, fun thing to watch. We'll see what happens with Visions first, which I'm really excited about. So
yeah, that second trailer for Visions was definitely like, me as a non-anime fan, that second trailer for Visions was like, oh, okay. I'm a little excited now.
Well, I think that is all for today, right? I don't know if you have anything more to add. before you say
No,
goodbye?
I think we'll check in again on What If after episodes 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, sure. I think that's a good idea. Well, with that, we are Triad of the Force today, the Dyad.
Exactly. Try
You
it in
can find
spirit.
us. Yeah, try it in spirit. You can find us whatever the podcast can be found: YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. We have some shirts you can check out too. And until next time, even though we didn't talk that much about Star Wars today, may the Force be with you. Bye.